Namaskar. This is Dada Ranjitananda. Welcome to this webinar. Today is the third chapter. We are talking about Tantra, the science of self-realization. You can communicate with me through the questions. So if you have any comment, any question, if you face any technical problem, you cannot hear, or the image is not good, you let me know. Today I gave a webinar earlier today, and the sound was not very good, so the internet here today is not very good. So if it happens that the sound is not coming good, you can tell me. I can turn off the camera, and that makes it faster. We are all moving in our spiritual journey. And this path is actually the movement from the point of fundamental negativity to the point of fundamental positivity. And the path is through our chakras or through our spinal cord. So this spiritual path that people say, oh, there are so many paths and like this, but actually it's only one. Now, what we do to raise our awareness from the lowest point to the highest point, that may vary, but the real journey is the same. It can be any, let's say, practice. The practice must be able to take us through that journey. It means to elevate our awareness from the lowest chakra to the highest chakra. And everybody is moving on this path. Some people are unknowingly moving and some are knowingly moving. So it always starts when our interest for spirituality grows. And as I mentioned before, it could be through a religion or just through different situations we face in our life. Our interest for something spiritual grows and grows. And then it comes a point that we start searching and we are asking that inner being or that supreme being to guide us, to take us on this path to light, to the Supreme. And when that arises in us and we are really feeling that spirituality is a priority and we are looking for, we are searching, so that desire for self-knowledge has grown, that's when the guru or the teacher comes by, finds us or let us find him, and then we are coming to the tantric path if we come in contact with a tantric guru. And the first step, as we talked the previous classes, is the diksha, D plus ksha. D is light, some light on the path so we know where to go, what direction we are going. And ksha has to do with exhausting the samskaras, removing the burden that we are carrying as quick as possible. So the diksha, the process with the mantra, and we'll talk more about the process in this course. So that process help us to realize the meaning of the mantra, help us to remove our samskaras, eliminate them, so we can move lighter and lighter on this path. And the philosophy. Why the philosophy? Philosophy keeps our intellect on the path. It removes doubt. Because suppose we are progressing in our meditation. We are going up. Oh, it's so nice. We are going up. But then for some time, it goes, we don't feel it anymore, we are not inspired anymore, then we may think, oh no, this meditation is not so good, and then we may stop it. But if we study, then we know that that happens. It's not always a straight line. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. We go through lots of situations, lots of ups and downs. And it's perfectly normal in the spiritual path. And if one day our meditation is so good, maybe the next day is not so good. That's normal, that happens. And we shouldn't be discouraged when these situations occur. And the samskaras that are passing may create some difficult situations in our family, in our personal life, in our work. Sometimes it will be difficult to find the time to meditate, but it is possible. And it is important that we keep doing the practice. Whatever we learned, if we learn a little bit, we keep practicing that little bit. If we learn a little bit more, we keep practice that little bit more. We should always make effort to learn, because as we learn and as we practice, we get ready for more. And the Guru gives us in the right moment, in the right quantity. And there are different stories that people have experienced, that we get the right thing in the right moment, as long as we sincerely put into practice whatever we learn. I presented last time these 6 points of philosophy: the ontology, metaphysics, spiritual practice, epistemology, psychology, and ethics. So I already talked about ontology and metaphysics in the previous class, and let's move forward, remembering that we are human beings, and in fact we are looking for happiness, bliss, ananda. So the spiritual practice is one of the most important things in Tantra. And the practice of yoga is included. Now, what is the spiritual practice? I like to say that the spiritual practice should be, or is, everything that we do in the 24 hours of our day, all the days of the week, in fact, all the days of the year. So if we do it 24 hours, 365 days, anything that we do in this period of time, let's say we live 100 years, so multiply that for 100, we'll get like 876,000 hours. So that's the time we have to do spiritual practice. But in our life, we do so many things. So how to transform all that into a spiritual practice? It all depends on how we do it. If we do it in a systematic way, with the right ideation, and if we do everything possible to reduce the bondage of Prakriti, to increase the influence of consciousness in us and reduce the influence of Prakriti. Anything we do, for example, if we are going to eat, what kind of food should we eat? We should eat food that decreases the bondage of Prakriti. The bondage of Prakriti is stronger in the static, when the guna is the static one, or it means tamaguna. So tamaguna is the most, let's say, the crudest bondage we can be under. So we don't want tamaguna in the food that we eat. What do we want? We want sattva guna. this subtle, sentient food. So that will decrease the influence of Prakriti. So in that way, any action, even, for example, the place we live, how we keep it, how it is organized, how it is cleaned, the colors, everything is important to decrease the bondage of Prakriti. So in anything we do in these 24 hours of our day, if we do it in a more systematic way, then we get benefit. I'm not going to go into the details of the spiritual practice because I'm going to dedicate a whole class only on that. So another point, the epistemology. In our philosophy, there are two branches of knowledge, and those are para, which is the knowledge related to the Supreme. It is beyond time, space, and person. That's very important. And the other one is apara. That's the knowledge within the scope of time, space, and person. It means whatever we are studying that has to do with the world, that is apara. And whatever we are doing and studying which has to do with the supreme reality, that is para. What happens in the society today? We go to kindergarten, first grade, and then go on, then middle school, high school. Maybe we'll go to university and then get a master's degree, a PhD, and we spend hours and hours, and we are only studying apara, means the knowledge within time, space, and person changes. Suppose somebody studied years of medicine, but that was like 20 years ago. Today, that study may be obsolete. Many of the things one studied before are not used anymore. Or physics, or computer science. It's just changing. And we spend many hours in that. And everybody spends so many hours in that. And that's accepted by the society. What about the knowledge beyond the scope of time, space, and person? What about the spiritual knowledge? How much time is given to spiritual knowledge? And when the people come to spirituality, maybe already in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, they come into spirituality, and then we have the idea that in a short time we know everything, and then we also want to learn everything so quickly. Just make a comparison that the knowledge of the things of the world compared to the knowledge of the Supreme, which is infinite. So spiritual knowledge is a lot, and there is much to learn, and we are always learning. And even as the more we learn, the more we realize that we know so little. So we really need to dedicate time to the knowledge of the Supreme. And if any of you has studied so many years to know some profession and now work in that profession, that much also needs to be given to the spirituality. And so we will be able to develop that knowledge that is beyond the limitations. Still, I want to say that it's important to cultivate both. It's important to learn languages, to develop our own language so we can communicate better. to develop art, to develop science, is still very important. Because some people who go into the spiritual world, they have a tendency to think that the knowledge of the things of the world doesn't have value. But it is not like that. It has value, it is important. Even for our own spiritual development, it's also important that we maintain some balance with our existence in the physical world and our existence in the spiritual world. There should always be some balance. So that is the epistemology of in our philosophy, that these two types of knowledge, two groups of knowledge to be cultivated. And regarding psychology, psychology is usually not a part of philosophy, but here this part is included, psychology. It has to do with the mind. There are many philosophies, they ignore the mind completely. Even some spiritual philosophies, they have this idea that the supreme is the truth, and what is in our mind is just thoughts, and these thoughts we have to remove. So they are trying to annihilate the mind, but they fail because mind doesn't want to be annihilated. So it will be an eternal struggle with the mind, and they will not be able to be so useful in the world. So regarding the mind, in our philosophy, we say that mind has different functional chambers, which are the chitta, aham, and mahat. I mentioned a little bit last class, and in other courses I mentioned about these. So let's just think the mahat is that deepest part of the mind. It's just the feeling of I am. The aham is a little bit more external. It means here in the mahat there is the influence of, or the bondage is sattva-guna. In the aham is raja-guna, or the mutative part. So now the aham is that I do. It's a very dynamic I do, mutative. And then comes the static part, which is the chitta. In the chitta part is the done I. It means it's the part that is expressed, that is more external. To understand the mind, the understanding of these three chambers help. But we also have to think about the mental states. And the mind has four mental states. One is wakeful state. We are awake. The other one is we are dreaming. And then sleep, regular sleep. And the other one is transcendental. So, awake, we are dealing with the world. Then we are dreaming, sleeping but dreaming. And then deep sleep, no dreams. And then the transcendental state. So these are four states of the mind. So there are the three functional chambers, but mind also, we have to analyze the state that the mind is. And then we also divide the mind in the conscious part of the mind, means the part that we are using in contact with the world, the subconscious. In subconscious is we are thinking deeply. Dreaming is also happening in the subconscious. And then there is the unconscious part of the mind. Some people also call it superconscious. It's a part that we are not so much aware of it, but that is what is guiding us, the unconscious. If we are guided by the conscious, it means that we will be doing what the external world is demanding from us. So that's when mind is dominated by the conscious portion, and our decisions are taken based on the conscious portion. Okay. But we want that our inspiration comes from the unconscious, which is the deepest part of our mind, closer to the consciousness. So if it's coming from the unconscious, it means it's connected closely to the consciousness or the soul, and that inspiration makes our life different. And then we also know about the 5 layers of the mind: Kamamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Atmanash Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Hiranmaya Kosha. I'm not 100% sure if in the course we will have time to cover all these aspects. We'll see. So I wanted just to mention this. The Kamamaya is the part of the mind that is dealing more with the external world. The Manomaya is more the intellect, deep thinking. Atimanas is one step beyond the intellect. Manas, mind. Ati, little bit beyond. So that part is more like the intuition, creativity. And then Vijnanamaya Kosha. Gyan means knowledge. Special knowledge. What is this special knowledge? The special knowledge is when I know what to do, what not to do, what is right, what is wrong, what will take me closer to the goal, to the supreme, what will take me further. So this discernment, the capacity to discriminate, that comes from this Vijnanamaya Kosha. And the Hiranmaya Kosha, they call it the golden layer. Why that? Because in that layer there is kind of a very deep feeling of serenity or balance. It is like beyond just the regular expressions of mind. Another concept here is that the mind connects with the objects of the world through something that we call Tanmatra. So this is an important concept. The Tanmatra is what keeps the association of the mind with the external world. We also call it in English inference, and it could be sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Now, how does it work? If there is an object in front of us, these Tanmatras are like vibrations coming from that object, or it could be like particles, as we can say, coming from that object and coming in contact with our mind through the 5 sensory organs. So This Tanmatras is what connects us to the other objects. So whenever we interact with any object that has a form, it has a color, it has a smell, it has maybe a sound, and when we touch it, it gives a certain feeling. So that transmits something directly to our mind. That's why one important part of spiritual practice is to be very aware of whatever we come in contact with, because all that is creating an effect in our mind. And we don't want that tamasic vibrations or tamasic tanmatras will come so much in contact with our mind, because it will make a little bit more difficult for our mind to be free from the tamaguna of Prakriti. Okay, so that much about the mind. Now the last part of philosophy is ethics. Our system is the system of Yama and Niyama. 5 points to deal with our relationship and the external world, external beings, external objects. 5 points, our relationship with ourselves, our inside. I will cover more on the Yama Niyama in one separate class. Why ethics is important? Because it provides a base. It guides our behavior. And it stimulates us to do actions that reduce the influence of Prakriti. So that's the idea. Why to practice Yama and Yama? Yama and Yama is also a practice. So ethics is also what practice on the day-to-day, how we behave. It will guide what we do in a way that we are less influenced by Prakriti. You can already start thinking about your questions there. And if you want to start typing whenever. So why to know philosophy? I like to repeat this during the classes. Practice is really important. In fact, in Tantra we say that 99% or 99.9% is practice. Only 1% or 0.1% is theory. But still, to make 100%, we still need that theory. And that theory, that philosophy, is what removes our doubts that, yes, we are moving on the right path. Because anytime it can come in the mind, am I going the right path? Because just think of how many people you know. And from all these people you know, maybe from work, from school, or from wherever, all these people, how many of them are following a tantric path, meditating, doing so many practices? It will be very few. So it is easy to think sometimes that, am I doing the right thing? And then, in the world, there are certain values, like maybe if you have a certain job, that's a certain value. If you have this much money, if your house is like this, or your car is like this. So in that way, they are giving value to people. And maybe we think, okay, I'm spending so much time doing these practices, and at that time I could be maybe working, and therefore I'm not working, so I'm not getting this much money, so I'm not having all this value. But if we really know what is valuable, what is not valuable, then we will not be discouraged in our practice. So that's the main thing that I feel that philosophy is important. And our guru, our spiritual teacher, he said that human life is an ideological flow. How do I understand that? Is that our life is guided by the philosophy or the ideology that we have in our mind. The values guide us. So if we value something, we find the time, we find a way to do it. If we do not value, we do not find the time. There are some philosophies that say that the world is an illusion. So just think of the effect on the mind when you follow this type of philosophy. It means that everything you do in the world is just an illusion, has no value. So why to spend any time on it? So that, imagine the effect of such philosophy in a society. It will create poverty, hunger, problems, so many difficulties in the society if people live with that philosophy. Now, another philosophy, that is suffering. Life is suffering, and we need to escape from suffering. If we think in that way, if we think that everything is suffering, 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 we'll start seeing suffering in everything. We'll also create a kind of alienation to life and to society, and thinking, oh, this suffering, I don't want this suffering, I want to come out from this suffering. What is our idea? From the name of our philosophy, Ananda Marga. Ananda means bliss, Marga, path. Ananda Marga, the path of bliss. So the path of bliss, life, what is life? Life is the path towards bliss. So we are moving towards bliss, and so we are experiencing an ever-growing bliss. So that's the movement. So if just to think about that, you already see life in a different way. Okay. So just one just one summary of what we saw today. So this, from the 6 parts, we saw the ontology and metaphysics last time. Today I quickly passed over the other parts: spiritual practice, epistemology, psychology. Missed one. So okay, just a moment. One minute. Okay, so today I covered the spiritual practice, epistemology, the psychology, and now ethics. I will give more time at least to spiritual practice, psychology, and ethics. That will be 3 more presentations. The epistemology I will not touch anymore. Okay, so now we can go to questions. And I already see one question here. Let me go to that question just a moment. Okay. Okay. You said we are moving from supreme negativity towards supreme positivity. Does that mean our physical life is all negative? No, it doesn't mean that. It's just a way of putting it. The supreme positivity means in the highest chakra, consciousness. What does it mean? That it's the most subtle point. And what is the supreme negativity? That is the lowest chakra. It's like Kundalini is sleeping in the lowest chakra, and it has to move all the way to the highest chakra. Now, the lowest chakra is related to which fundamental factor? Solid. So, solid is the point that Prakriti exerted maximum pressure. So it's the maximum influence of Prakriti, and that's the solid. So the other factors, liquid, luminous, aerial, ethereal, there is less influence of Prakriti. So that it means that it went to the minimum, so the most pressure, and then we will bring it to the highest expression of consciousness in the highest chakra. So that's the idea. So it doesn't mean it does not mean that our life is negative. As I mentioned just in the last point, that if we have this idea that we are on the path of bliss, so our life is the path of bliss, and what is the culminating point is bliss, Ananda, Brahma. So that's the final point. Okay, so that, let's see what more here. All right, okay, here there is one point talking about the supreme command. It's saying, but the supreme command says that to live in this world is to suffer the pain of animal life. No, that's not what it says. The supreme command says that if we are not practicing sadhana, okay, practicing sadhana means we are moving on the path of bliss. So if we are not doing that, and we have a human body, a human mind, human existence, human structure, but we are not using it to practice sadhana, to move towards bliss, it means what is happening is that we are just living a life not much different from an animal life. And an animal life is kind of painful because the animal doesn't have the right structure to move on this path of spirituality. And imagine just how is animal life. Okay, suppose a small animal is all the time thinking how to find food, and maybe it is eating some smaller animal, but then comes a bigger animal, will eat that animal. So that animal has to be all the time looking for food. At the same time, it has to be protecting itself from becoming food. Imagine all this tension, and if it is rain, it is in the wet. If it is cold, it's cold. Hot, it's hot. But human life is much different. Human life, if we are practicing sadhana, then we are moving towards spirituality, so moving towards bliss. And if we are not experiencing bliss, we are not using this body, this structure for our spiritual development, that means that we are wasting it. And we get the body that is according to our mind. So suppose somebody has a human body and doesn't use this body as a human being, but just as an animal, eating, sleeping, reproducing, and fear, and just a very animalistic type of life. What happens? When that body finishes, that mind is going to leave that body and it's going to look for another body. When it's going to look for another body, it will look for a body according to its psychology in the previous life. So if that psychology was an animal psychology, it will again get an animal body. So again has to suffer in an animal body, because animal body doesn't give that scope to attain realization. So that's what says the Supreme Command. It doesn't say that life is suffering. It doesn't say that. Yeah. Okay, now another question here. What if meditation, sadhana, feels very dry and mechanical, and the practice of regular meditation feels mechanical and without much life? Okay. Two situations can be there. One situation, maybe there is something in the practice that is not being done right. Because a lot in the practice is ideation. That's one point. Another point has to do with our daily life. Okay? One thing that inspires very much is to do service. In fact, I remember one story that was told to me by one Dada. The story was, I think Baba might have said that also in one discourse, that if sadhana is dry and you are not enjoying it like that, it's like you are on a boat and water is entering on the boat. So the boat is kind of heavy, sinking, and very difficult to move. So what is to take the water out? So to take the water out is to do a little bit service. If we do a little bit service, that will give some inspiration also in the sadhana. So what kind of service to do? Our Guru, Anandamurti, he created this organization and he put a lot of service activities in the organization, even though in certain countries we may not be able to do so much, but we still do something. So if somebody engages himself or herself in some activity of service, that also will give some inspiration for sadhana. So it needs this balance between the sadhana and the activity in the world, because sadhana is not completely alienated from what we do in the world. So we do need that kind of connection. Therefore, doing some service, it can be spiritual service, like suppose we are talking to other people about spirituality. That also gives us inspiration, because when you talk to others, you have to dive deep within you to explain what you do, why you do. So you bring out some inspiration from within. That's one service. Or physical service, helping people, like volunteering to help people. Or even in Ananda Marga itself, doing some service to the organization, even remotely, or even in the area where we live, organize some program, invite some senior meditator or some dada or didi to come and give a talk. All this kind of gives inspiration. And satsanga, be in connection with people who meditate. So let's say once a week to do a collective meditation. That also inspires. We meditate together, discuss some spiritual reading together. So all these things kind of add so that there will be a more flow in the meditation. And it could be also that we are meditating, but we are not giving the right ideation. And also kirtan, listen to kirtan, sing kirtan. If you know some musical instrument, play it, or even play it very simply and sing it, dance it. That also gives some more feeling to the meditation. Okay, now there is one more question here. Can you talk about ideation? Okay, what is ideation? Ideation is when we intentionally bring an idea to the mind. Let's say we are doing meditation. When we are doing meditation, what is the ideation? It depends on the lesson that we are doing, or the technique of meditation that we are doing. Let's say the first lesson, or the Ishvara Pranidhan, the first lesson in the Ananda Marga system called Sahaj Yoga. So the first lesson is called Ishvara Pranidhan. So what is the ideation in that lesson? It starts with the withdrawal. So the idea that we withdraw from the external world. Then we are ideating different, that now we are withdrawing from our body. And then, now, let's say we are concentrating the mind in one point. Then we are ideating that we are a point, and around us is Supreme Consciousness. Now, how we relate to that Supreme Consciousness, how much feeling we have towards that Supreme Consciousness. So, according to the feeling that we can develop towards that Supreme Consciousness, then we can connect easier to the Supreme Consciousness. So now, if we have much attraction, much love, much deep feeling for this Supreme Entity, then that is an ideation that we create in our mind, of that, and then we go closer to it. Let's make a comparison. Let's try to understand. For example, Suppose I want to get a new, let's say something simple, new car. Okay, so I want to get a new car. So I think, oh, I want this, let's say, a Porsche. Okay, a Porsche. So I want to buy that car. What are you thinking in your mind all the time? Maybe you are seeing the shape of the car. Oh, it's so nice. It's round like this, and it's so aerodynamic. And the color, oh, I want blue. Oh, blue is so nice. And so we are, as more we think about it, we are kind of feeling in our mind that yes, we should really get it. So that's how you are growing your ideation so much that you are ready to do the sacrifice and spend, let's say, I don't know how much it costs, $100,000, save so much money, putting all the effort, and then you get it, you know. But here we want the supreme being. So now, what is the ideation? Now we are thinking, oh, the supreme being. It's like this and like that, and I want to be closer and closer, and in that way we are developing the ideation. So the sadhana is going deeper and deeper, you know, until we finally, with all the effort and all the sacrifice, oh, yeah, I get it. That's what came in my mind now. Okay, I think it's about time now. I don't see any more questions. I would like to end today, and we'll continue next week. I know that some of you have emailed me some question. I'm going to see if I incorporate it in one of the lessons, so I cover it also. Okay, so thank you and good night. Namaskar.